Now, this is just going to be a very basic introduction into Blender. If you go and download Blender off the internet, they are already past 2.63, I know that. Being an open source program, it's free, you can download it, but they also do updates very rapidly, because they're fixing little bugs and so on and so forth. 2.63 is pretty stable. It was stable at the beginning of the year. I think we're going to continue with this one, unless I find that there's any major problems that a newer version will fix. Okay? And honestly, they don't change much from version to version, so it's really not that big of a deal anyway. Blender's going to start like this, and once you get in here, you can just click to the side, and then that little splash logo page thing kind of disappears. And this is the way it's going to look right off the bat. Now, one of the things that I like to do with Blender is, if you go right up here to the top, see this? This is actually going to get rid of the menu across the top, because one of the things you'll notice about Blender is there really isn't much here in the ways of menus along the top. They're all right here. So we're just going to hit that little button. We're going to hit that little button, and it's going to take over the entire desktop. And this makes it really nice. The other thing is, you'll notice that when I take the cursor down to the bottom, the dock doesn't pop up when you do this either. And that's also very nice, because you have a lot of buttons down here that you're going to be using occasionally, some more than others. And it's really annoying when the dock pops up. So I really like the fact that Blender does that. One of the things that's really important is, whenever you are working in Blender, you have to keep in mind that you are working in a three-dimensional space, and yet you're viewing it on a two-dimensional flat screen. So how, may I ask, a theoretical question, but I think you'll get this, how do you show three-dimensional space on a two-dimensional screen? If you were drawing, how would you show something, a cube like this was three-dimensional on a two-dimensional piece of paper? What do you do to show that something is 3D? You can shade it, exactly, and you can see that that's done here to our cube. What's another thing that you can do to show that something is three-dimensional?
Number of sides.
Okay, so you're showing more sides. Yeah, what do we call, when you start showing more sides like this, what do we call this? Thank you, perspective, exactly. What we've got is, we're showing something in perspective. Now, the way that Blender works is it starts to work with multiple buttons on the mouse. And it actually is meant to use a clicker for the scroll wheel too, so the scroll wheel clicks. I don't like to do that with these mice, because I have a tendency while I'm clicking to also scroll. So one of the things that I'm going to do, or tell you to do, is first things off when you're working in Blender, you're going to go File, and you're going to go to User Preferences. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in the user preferences. We don't really need to go over much, okay? But one of the things that you want to do is you want to go to Input, and you want to say Emulate 3-button mouse, okay? Right? Yes. And then what that'll allow you to do is use the Control key on the keyboard to make some of your changes. And that's basically all we need to do. And then I'm going to click Save as Default there. And now what I can do is I can click the Option key and then use the left click on the mouse button, and I can drag around an object and start to manipulate the view. And that's basically like walking around the cube. Sometimes it helps to think of this almost as if you're actually shooting a real movie. There's a camera, there's a light source, okay? You can select these things and you can move them. So let's select our cube and let's move it. So you can zoom in or zoom out using the scroll wheel, okay? To select an object, you right-click on it. As soon as you right-click on an object, you'll notice that what you get is you get these 3 arrows. These arrows correspond with the axes vertical and horizontal axes that you have in Blender. One of the things that Blender does a little differently than others is Blender has a Z-axis vertical. For some 3D applications, the Z-axis, believe it or not, is a horizontal axis. This can cause problems when you move from Blender into a different program, but for us right now, not a big deal. If you want to move an object, okay, you will have these object tools here, and then you also have these tools down here along the bottom. And right here you can see it says Translate Manipulator. This allows me to move objects. Then you'll see there's this one, which is a Rotate Manipulator. And then there's a Scale Manipulator. So if I were to click on, let's say, I've got the Translate Manipulator, I grab one of these arrows and I can slide it up and down in that axis. See? You can also just grab the object by right-clicking and drag it around. But I don't recommend doing that at all. And the reason why I don't recommend doing that at all is because you might just want to move it up. But now I've also moved it further away from me. And you can see that as I spin around, it's now definitely left of center. So it really helps to use these arrow tools, or these arrows, to drag something. I almost never work in 3D animation and just grab and move things. I almost always move them with the arrows because I can be very precise. The other thing that you can do, that is over here, is you can go over to all these options that are here. You can click on the cube, and if you hit the cube, it's going to tell you what object you're selected, and it's going to tell you its location in space in X, Y, and Z. So let's just say I wanted to return this back to the center of my grid. I can just go in and type 0, 0, 0. And now the center of that object moves right back into the center of the grid. Nice and simple. So there's always, sometimes you'll create an object and it's so far away you can't even see it. You don't know where it is. You can always just go and put it right back in the grid. So now we can also have the Rotate Manipulator here. And then you can see it gives you these ability to rotate things in 4 different axes. Ready? 3 axes that are relative to the object. So in other words, the red axis allows me to rotate this way. The green axis allows me to rotate this way. And the blue axis allows me to rotate this way. Notice that the colors correspond with the axes on the grid. So the green one's going around this way, which means that the green axis is going through the object and it rotates around that object, or around that axis, I should say. The 4th axis is actually, it allows you to rotate it perpendicular, or on an axis that's actually parallel to the view. So if I grab this white axis, it now rotates it around an axis that's shooting through the object as like a laser coming from the view that we're on. So that if I then rotate a little bit like this, you can see the other 3 axes rotate accordingly, but this white circle continues to stay perpendicular to us, which means that it rotates on an axis that's equal to our view. That's very handy to do, by the way. It's pretty cool, but it also can really mess you up a lot as well. And lastly, we have the Scale Manipulator, and just like all the others, you can scale things in one axis, I should say, or all the axes by grabbing the white circle, and you can make them bigger. You can also go over here, and you'll notice that these 3 controls, location, rotation, and scale, are all in numerics right here. So if I wanted to rotate this exactly 45 degrees along my y-axis, which is the green, I can just type 45 degrees and it spins 45 degrees. So you can be pretty precise about it, or you can just click and drag. It really doesn't matter. And that's just basically manipulating an object very simply. You can do a whole lot more than that. The other thing that you can do is you'll see this little crosshairs that's right there. And every time I left click with the mouse, it moves around. That crosshairs controls where a new object is going to show up when you add it. So I can hit the space bar, and that doesn't do what I thought it was going to do. Okay. You go up here to the Add menu, and you can add all sorts of different objects. And I'm going to let you play with them. I would say just stay with these top section here. Don't go down into the armatures, empties, lattice. We're going to start working with those eventually, but you don't need to worry about it. Force fields and stuff like that, by the way, are really cool. But they're also really complicated, so we'll stay away from those for now. So if I were just to go in and add a mesh object, which is what 90% of the objects are gonna be when you're in Blender, and I just add another. How about let's add a sphere, and you'll notice that what happened is it came in where those crosshairs were. Okay. So if I don't like that, then I can just move it. So let's just say you wanted to have something be at center. Well, if I click, let's move this out of the way. If I left click and bring the target there, is it really at center? No. You can see that it may look like it's at center here, but if I start to move and rotate, you can see now that it's below what would be the ground plane of the ground line. So it's really important to kind of always zoom around your objects and swing around them. You do this again by holding the Option key down and spinning around, okay, with the left click button on the mouse. You right click to select objects. Another thing that's really handy is the keypads. The number pad on the keyboard can also get you to different views. So if I hit 7, that puts me right over top. If I hit 1, that puts me on the one side. 3 puts me on the other side. And then I can use 2 or 8 to like move up or down. So if I wanted to put this little crosshairs where my new object is going to be directly in the center, the first thing I would do is I'd go directly top by hitting the 7 key, click there, and then I would hit the 1 key and click there. And now, for all intents and purposes, that cursor is in the center. Notice the other thing that I can do here, look carefully as I hit the 5 key. What happens, especially look at the cube. What am I turning on and off when I hit the 5 key? Yeah, James? They're right. I'm turning off my ability to see things in 3D. In other words, I'm turning off the perspective. Okay? So if I hit that 5 key in the middle of the number pad, I turn off the perspective. I'm going to give you guys a list of keyboard shortcuts for Blender because I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of Blender, at least half of Blender is all keyboard shortcuts. You're going to be using different keys to add things, to move things, to manipulate things. Okay, it's a vastly different world. Now, before I let you guys go, I'll just go over a couple of other things here. So that's how you add a simple object, move them, right-click on them, scale them, all that sort of stuff. There's a whole bunch of options down here. A couple of things that can really mess you up. Layers. These are layers. You can have layers in your animation. The problem being is if you click on one of these, your objects may disappear. Well, that's because you just selected a layer. So you usually generally want to stay in just one layer for now, okay? That can be really powerful, but we won't do animations that are that huge for the most part. So you're probably not going to need to worry about layers. You can also go here and you can change how an object looks. So right now there's solids. You can set it to texture, which uses a lot more memory. We don't have any textures on these objects. They're just basically plain gray plastic sort of stuff. So it's not really going to matter. You can also go to a wireframe. Okay, you can see how that looks. Or a bounding box just gives you basically a very simple look at what, you know, the area that object takes up. Obviously, that sphere doesn't look like a sphere anymore, does it? So I generally say wireframe or solid. It works pretty well. You can also go into edit mode, but we're going to talk about edit mode later, so you always want to stay in object mode. So if something's not working, check that. Okay? Don't worry about moving this. This is your timeline. That's once we start to animate things. We're not gonna go there quite yet. Like I said, this is very basic. And then over here, we just have a whole series of tools. You translate means to move something around in space. Rotate's obvious. Scale's obvious. Okay? And then you can just, those are the basics. You can join objects. You can delete an object. You can, we don't need to worry about inserting keyframes or anything like that. Or grease pencils, but you can play with this stuff. What I want you to be doing right now is, if you're done your flash animation, just go in here, create a couple of objects, have some fun with them, but nothing that really needs to be saved. One of the other things that you'll see is whenever you're in one of the tools, you also get some options down here where you can change things here, and you can constrain it. You can do all, you know, proportional, you know, like how proportional the editing is, like the fall off for editing, like this. It's basically like the scale of the changes. Does that make sense? Like, so if you move the mouse a little bit, how much the change is going to be, like that sort of thing. And again, you can just play with all these things and just have fun. A lot of people will accidentally change or close some of these. I can help you get them back. You can add new things by accident, okay? And then it's hard to. Sometimes it's hard to get them out of the way once you add them. It's I think it's the option. No. Oh, see, I added another one. No! You can do this to yourself really easily, by the way. Oh, that's kind of cool. That's actually new. I didn't know that. So now you have more transform tools here. But we still want to get rid of this. Oh, so you just grab it. So let's say you have an extra. So let's say I did this. I added another one. You just click, hold, left click, and drag it to the right real fast, and you get that arrow, and boom, it goes away. That's nice. And then here, see this little plus symbol? They've added this. That's kind of nice. So now you can add open some tools, which actually a lot of those are in here. But that's kind of cool, too. And now I don't know how to get rid of it. Oh, boy. Just close it, I guess. Yeah, just close it like that. There you go. So Blender is constantly changing. It's constantly moving. You have a lot of options in here with these buttons. Right here, this is your list of objects that you're going to have. So you can see right now I've got a light, a camera, a cube, and a sphere. Done. Nice and simple. Okay? But it allows you to see what's in your animation in a list form. You can configure and change Blender any way you want. There's multiple windows. So if I go up here, where it says default, I can click. There's a whole series of windows, and it changes, vastly changes the way things look. Okay? UV editing, okay, for textures. There's all sorts of stuff in here. But for now, you can just switch to default, play with some objects. I'm not going to teach you how to animate them. Oh, one last thing. Haha. So the Option key swings you around. I forgot to teach you how to slide. Option and Shift allows you to slide side to side. That gets really frustrating if you can't do that. Okay? Nice and simple. It's a very different program than anything you've probably ever used before. It's also kind of the flat gray without any colors and stuff. Or it's got some colors, but not a lot. Can get a little, I don't know, boring. and yet at the same time, this is one of my favorite programs to work with. It is so cool, and it is so powerful, and it's free. I mean, that's actually the most amazing part about it, is it's free. You all can go home tonight, download it. It's not going to give you a virus. It's a perfectly safe program, and the power that this thing has is amazing. What's in it, especially considering what it used to be just 2-3 years ago, and how far it's come just in 3 or 4 years. It's really amazing. It's really cool. Any questions or anything about this? I know that I'm trying not to give you too much, and yet at the same time, that's a lot. Okay? So if you're done with your Flash animation, you can. I'd like to check over it first, but you can start to work with Blender and start playing with it, just adding objects and stuff. Okay?